Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Glad you all could be here. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How we all doing?
Good.
How are you doing, Meg?
Shitty. I'm doing shitty.
You would think that I killed Meg's puppy or something.
You're really not too far
Kind
off.
of did.
I mean, he followed her around the ship, did what she told him to do.
Wore a collar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great right there. I'm hurting you because I love you. Yep, that seems good. Seems correct.
I watched the first 3 seasons of Adventure Time in the past week.
Oh, so you've had a lot of time on your hands then.
No, I've just been doing stuff on my computer,
Okay, gotcha.
and I've had that up while I do it.
Gotcha.
So
The show does not exactly demand your full attention.
No, and I could.
No, it does not.
I could not. I tried because everybody's like, "Oh, it's so good! Like, it's an adult cartoon," and I'm like, "Oh God, I couldn't do it."
Oh my god, I love Adventure
yeah, I
Time.
No.
can't
Get
do
into
Adventure
it.
Time.
I'm not even sure that I would say it's good, but it has really good moments. Like, it's worth watching the rest of it
Yeah.
to get like those. Yeah.
Reasonably, I
talk
compare
about
it
it,
to Rick and Morty,
Oh
where
hell no!
I
Rick
feel
and Morty
like
is nonstop gold.
right,
Oh my
right,
God.
exactly.
Put it-
If you're about to
And-
shit on Rick and Morty right now,
No.
don't.
That's what
Because
I'm
it's gonna
saying
get
is
real.
like when I compare it to a show that I believe to be similar in concept.
Okay.
I look at Rick and Morty and I'm like, Adventure Time doesn't even hold a candle to this for me.
No, it
Like,
doesn't.
That is true. That is a true assessment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So-
I'm ready to draw all the fire, but I haven't watched a single episode of Rick and Morty.
Oh God, Devin, please.
It's not going to draw any
That's not.
fire.
Yeah,
I
no,
just,
that's
like,
fine.
Okay.
It's just if
Okay.
you said that you watched every episode and said it was horrible, in which case then we would
Yeah.
have an issue. There's a
I mean,
difference.
You're
100%.
missing
No.
out.
You're missing
No.
out, and I'm sad for you. But that's not going to bring hate. Like,
Understand that, as you guys know, I'm fairly critical of movies and TV shows. In fact, I didn't
We
even
had
mention.
no idea.
Really?
I didn't even
Wow.
mention about Logan.
interesting.
But yeah, no, Rick and Morty is good.
It is
there
immaculate.
yeah,
and
Gold.
inarguable.
There are very few moments ever in Rick and Morty where I'm like, huh. It's mostly just, that's amazing. Yep, I love it. It's good.
All right.
So
Yeah,
Chan's
I'll get
dying.
on that. Yeah.
Why don't we-
Actually,
You used
be
a strange
precise,
tense on
not.
that. Yeah, use it. You added a strange
No,
present
it was
tense
correct.
to that.
It was correct. It was a correct tense, Jordan. Stop it.
No, I think present should be past, but we'll see. We will find out. So
the lines get muddied only further with medical sorcery of any sort.
Yeah, and so here's the deal. I'm gonna preface it with this. And this applies to anyone, right? This applies to PCs, NPCs, whatever. Final death requires basically no one attending to you, right? Like, there are methods, and even in today's science we can see some of these methods in which people can be saved if you are in time. Dr. Fisher, you've given him his best chance, but remember how you were talking about that's just step 1? You gotta figure out a step 2. So Dr. Carter probably begins explain, you guys go over the scans, and there's probably a moment where he says, he's like, I can say that I am no brain surgeon myself, but there are others within the sector that could do this. The problem is time, of course. I do not know how long your cyst stim, you called it? I do not know how
Indeed.
long this will last.
Yes, they last for approximately 12 hours each, and it is to say I only have 2 more.
Well, there's not a whole lot of places you could get in 24 hours.
Go.
I'm gonna trim the course 6 times.
Listen,
Yeah,
I
let's see it.
traveled
Let's-
2-week
that
distance in
20.
3 days last time I checked, so...
And I think he says, he's like, you are free to have full access to my facility while you are here, but understand that it is primitive for your needs. In fact, I would say that this medical bay here is probably on spec with what we have in our possession. It's clear that you will need something more grandiose.
Of course. Do you know of any within, I guess you could say, 48 hours?
Yeah, I think he says, well, the obvious answer I think we both know. Eurypylos. That is where the hub of all modern medicine comes from. But to say that traditional means no. And you could tell he's kind of holding back a little bit on that.
I mean, I can only thank you for your seconded opinion of this matter. I think I just give out a heavy sigh.
Yeah, and I think at that he kind of he puts a hand on your shoulder, and he says, "Worry not, Doctor. Sometimes in our field we must deal with loss."
Indeed. I've just never been good at that aspect of it.
Yeah, and he kind of nods and he's like, "It gets no easier." And I think he says, "But not to be rude, there are many other patients awaiting my attention. You can find me later, but I must see to my duties."
Of course. Thank you for your time here, Doctor.
He kind of like nods solemnly and turns and he kind of like gives you a reassuring nod, Oscar. Or he kind of like looks sadly at Gogo, who I assume is just like standing in the corner, like staring. He kind of gives a sad smile. And he turns to you, Oscar, and he says, "If you would not mind, I do not know the layout of your ship quite as well as the layout of my own facility. If you could show me out."
Yeah, he motions to the door and walks in.
Yeah. Clink,
at-
clink, clink,
Yeah.
clink, clink. Yeah, exactly.
As they're walking, he says to the doctor, "You were somewhat cryptic earlier. What exactly did you mean?"
I think he says, I think he actually laughs, like a kind of a belly laugh. Like an unexpected laugh, like it kind of escapes his lips before he can stop it. And he goes, yes, that is something that I have been working on for quite some time. My people, we do not socially interact with others very well. I have been told that this...
He puts a hand up. And he says, "We may be two of a kind already."
Yeah, and I think he nods, and he recognizes now, like maybe not before, but he recognizes that you're a Shriek, right? Your basic body shape gives that away. And he says, yes. Our people, they certainly were not built for this sort of thing at times.
You did mention something I am interested in, though. Now that, well, this seems to be out of our hands, at least.
Yes?
you mentioned there may be someone here in system could do something. Did you not?
Yeah, and I think he's the thing about the Tan are, whereas the Syriac excel at hiding their emotions because they don't have like basic humanoid faces with recognizable features all that often, the Tan are kind of opposite. Being isolationists and only dealing with their own people, they show their emotion outwardly much easier than other races. And so you can visibly see like his face darken, and he kind of like he does the like look off to the side, like kind of in thought, but also maybe worry is there with a bit of apprehension, perhaps. And he turns and he says, "Well, yes, in system, yes, not here. You understand."
He picks up on the apprehension there, and he says, "Please," "please, nothing you say here will come back to you."
Yeah, and I think he nods and he says, "This is not my safety that I am concerned about. It is my morality. There is a place that is on Nicaea. You know it. Nicaea is is one of the other planets in this sector. It's the quote unquote out of contact planet." He says, it's maybe nothing, but I've heard that there are some, how do you say, less than traditional medicines going on there. It is possible they may have something for this. But for me personally, you understand, as a esteemed member of the medical community, I cannot recommend it in any regard. Untested and possibly irreputable medicines are not what I deal in.
I understand, as I hope you do. We may be willing to consider flexibility.
Yeah, and I think he kind of like he nods in understanding of that, but it's almost like a sad like maybe pity crosses across his face, right? Like sadness for you that like you feel forced to go down that path, kind of, or whatever you're trying to convey with that comment.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of echoes what he said back in the medical bay, where he says, "Loss is hard. I understand that for the ones that we care about, we want only the best for them. Again, I cannot advise that this is even a solution, but I understand your feelings on the matter."
This is not my decision to make.
Yeah, and I think he kind of like glances back towards the medical bay, even though you guys are like basically at the loading doors already, and he's like, "I assume that woman in there, the one with the cybernetics, that is his next of kin. Is it his wife?
Close enough.
Sister?
Close enough to it. Close
Yes.
enough to it.
It will be the hardest for her."
I understand details are scant. However, as a personal, he he doesn't want to like insult this guy. He pauses, and he like brings it back around to discussing Gogo. He says, "I will have to explain to her why this might not be a good idea. If you know enough about it to be certain it's against your morals. Please, at least that much. You have to share that with me.
Yeah, and I think for a long moment he stands there. Roll me a persuasion check. I don't need a very tall order.
Oh, Christ.
But roll me a persuasion check with charisma. I think just a basic success will gather some information.
That is already a tall order.
Yeah, and so...
Fuck, man.
So yeah, he kind of looks at you and he shakes his head and he's like, I'm sorry, but I have perhaps said too much already. Yeah, and he kind of like extends a hand to shake as if to end the meeting as you're like standing at the top of the loading ramp.
Yeah, he shakes his hand.
Yeah. And he
says,
or
no.
You say something.
He says, I will be in touch about the individuals that boarded our ship. If you cannot provide me with that information, someone will.
Yeah, and I think he says, maybe like he throws his bag like over his doctor's bag like over his shoulder to carry it, and he like starts to walk down. And he looks over his shoulder and he says, "They will not be hard to find. They are everywhere at this point. I'm sure that you will be able to exact whatever revenge you wish to exact should things go poorly for you." And like continues like walking down the ramp. So
all right, so like hard cut to Nicaea.
Yeah, so what do you guys like? Gogo and Dr. Fisher, you guys are left kind of in the room. What do you guys want to do? Or is like it just like silence in there?
Well,
Dr. Fisher, you still have kind of a decision to make here.
Yeah.
But Gogo, did you have something?
Yeah, so I feel like the whole time Gogo's just been standing in the exact spot where she took the step back from, and her body's just like slightly, quivering and
Rigid.
I think that she, once that she realizes that most people have left, I think she moves forward and sits on the stool that was there.
Yeah.
And I think that she just takes and she like puts her head, like her cheek, down on Chan's chest, and then just takes her hand and like puts it in his, and just like without obviously looking at Fisher, she just says, "You need to fix him."
Dagger through the heart, oh god. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I think it's just continue silence with that until everyone sort of gathers a bit.
Yeah. I mean, Oscar would be back there in pretty short order after speaking.
Basically, as long as it took us to do the conversation, Oscar would be back in.
Yeah. Yeah. He, when he gets in, he'd walk over to Fisher and say, "Doctor, we need to speak."
In private, so we have to leave the doctor's med bay because
well, yeah, I'm sure shit not gonna order Gogo out of there. I'm not suicidal.
She might or might not have a rocket launcher somewhere on the ship.
Yeah, I mean we're on solid ground, but I'm not gonna push my luck.
I'm fairly certain gunnery weapons still affect assault armor.
grenades don't. I know grenades don't.
Right.
Which I was considering earlier, but
It's
anyhow.
actually great. Just bandolier grenades, pull
Yeah.
pins, and just
Yeah.
run in.
Yeah.
Totally.
So yeah, Oscar says, Fisher, we need to speak.
Of course, let us step outside.
He probably like, he winds up walking, like just basically. He's like leading you to the mess hall, basically, and he like maybe absent-mindedly flips on the coffee maker or something, and he says, have you been attended to at least?
Blood running down his
it's-
chest.
It's stopped bleeding for now, at least.
You'll be of no use to us if that. And he trails off. He says, listen, what do you know about Nicaea?
That would require a culture traveler roll. If you want to know what you know, besides what I've told you already.
Traveller with int.
Correct, with intelligence. Not bad. So you know that before Nicaea's been out of contact post silence, which means that there was a period of time early on, right after the silence, during the initial re-exploration of the sector, where Nicaea was an active member in the community. They've acquired Tech Level 4 equipment again. There was a political, not a coup, but essentially like a acquisition of power on the planet, and they never closed their borders, but information, supplies, and stuff stopped coming from Nicaea. And it doesn't have a particularly diverse ecology where a lot of people need stuff from Nicaea. And so they kind of just dropped off the map a little bit, especially with the population of the other two inhabited planets in the system being so prominent. Nicaea kind of gets lost in the bustle, right? Because if people come to this sector, they're going to Takani, right? They're not going to anywhere else, really. Or they're going to the flea market planet. They're not really going to Nicaea. So Nicaea was kind of allowed to, just through happenstance, fall off the radar. But you do know that Nicaea did, the political faction that took over, also was not well received by the sector community as a whole. They were a little bit more totalitarian than democratic. And while that's not like completely uncommon elsewhere in the sector, their culture was so divergent from what is traditional humanity that most people are content just to leave them be and just let them live on their own planet and let them have their own things, and as long as I don't have to deal with them, it's okay. So yeah, that's basically what you know with an 8. Yeah.
Okay, so he doesn't intrinsically know anything about the medical aspect of it, then?
No, not
Okay.
intrinsically, no.
Sure.
One could assume that it is baseline post-tech, as is common knowledge.
Sure. But, like, in terms of weird specialities...
Yeah, no.
There's no... Okay.
He's not aware of that.
Okay, so Fisher brain dumps that.
Yep.
And Oscar says, when I was walking the ton out, he mentioned something about medical technology on Nicaea. It seemed like it left a bad taste in his mouth. but, and he, like, he lets that kind of hang in the air because he suspects that Fisher might still be able to do something himself. But he says, but he did mention that they may have unconventional ways to assist. He wouldn't tell me more.
Well, in all honesty, my fallback strategy was hardly above board either, but
That's one way to put it.
but at least this could be within our time constraints.
I'm just providing you the information. This is not my decision to make.
Okay.
I think the real question is, whose decision is it, though? I mean, that's
Yeah.
in my head, that's a real question, right? Like,
Yeah.
does anyone control Chan's fate? Like, do you put that on Gogo? Does that mean Gogo actually does own Chan, right? Like,
Out of character? Well, I mean, just speaking, I think that it would go to the medical professional
sure.
to
Yeah, that makes sense.
like make that determination. And
It's a lost cause or not. It's...
right, so that's regardless of who qualifies as next of kin.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are people who aren't next of kin that make those calls. Right.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Yep, I agree. So how do you react, Dr. Fisher?
the implication he's making is heavily that it is, since he's giving you this information, that you're in the position to either disseminate that or just make a decision yourself.
Yeah, because we all know how Gogo would react to anything that could potentially keep Chan alive, for better, for worse. But
probably for worse, but yes, that is the yeah.
Oh God, this is a hard decision, guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So if there's like a silence that kind of hangs there, he will say he'd say perhaps it's time to be open about our options.
Sorry.
No worries. Gogo will still have to fly us there. She'll need to know why. Or why not.
Yes. Okay, we currently have 3 options. First option is to regrettably say that we have done as much as we can for Chan and leave it at that. The second option is to go to Messiah and see how that could help or be completely detrimental to the rest of us. That's very unknown as of this moment. And the third, we stock up on stims all the time so that we can then manage to travel to Eurypylos. And I have a almost surefire way of keeping him, as I said, technically alive.
Technically.
I think the silence is appropriate.
Yeah. It's between us.
There's a very large individual in an assault suit waiting for your response.
I don't know if Dr. Fisher cares, actually.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, he's just standing there waiting.
Okay. So.
Before you go on, he says, Fisher.
Yes.
Whatever you say to me does not leave this room. I am a creature of my word. Understand?
Of course, Oscar. And you have saved my hide a couple of times already now.
And he puts up a hand and he just it is mutual.
If you want me to fully disclose the information, the third choice would be involving MES mutation to induce a almost feral transformation within the body. Do you have anything
You would
to...
turn him wild.
Possibly. It would depend on his resilience and the overall effect of the wound he has received, but that can certainly, with the aggressive change that would happen within the body structure, it would keep him technically alive.
Fisher, I have seen ferals before. I don't know how you could even suggest this. He would be less than... He's kind of aghast at what you're saying.
Well, and beyond the fact that he said I would induce MES in him, that's not something that you induce, by the way.
Right. Yeah. But like aside from that fact, like turning someone by any means into a feral psychic is like,
yes,
that's Scream level bad mojo.
Sure is.
There is a strong possibility that, well, the intelligence will remain. It's whether Chan will give in to his feral urges.
He'd be mad. How could his intelligence remain if he's truly... And he pauses and he says, hang on. Do you mean to tell me that you can stabilize feral psychics? What are you telling me exactly?
I'm saying that this change would change him, that is for sure, but he would still have his intelligence and thinking process. He would not become a beast as long as we support him, and ultimately I would like to develop the research to revert from that state.
It can be controlled. How have you tested this?
The secret of Euryopolis is this exact thing. The creatures in question, some are able to be reasoned with and have their own societies, but of course some give in to the primitive nature within them and can consume others of their flesh.
It is what he says.
Oscar.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Oscar takes his he clicks something on his helmet, and it like pulls back, and he sits down, and he says, I have my entire life studied this goes against everything I know to be true. Regardless of the healing, there's no way. You cannot bring ferals back. How? How do you do this?
It is possible. I am sure of it. It is. Although the rulers of Eurypylos would not want to admit it, but it can be done if the right conditions are available.
He is kind of like just shaking his head a little as you say this, and he's taking it in, like, he's doing it unconsciously, not like he's actively trying to deny what you're saying. It's just like this is completely unheard of to him.
For good reason.
Yeah.
It's a very well protected secret. Because could you imagine if everybody knew that the prime medical suppliers of the entire sector were housing feral zombie psychics? Just think about that for a moment. If we found out that what's a really important medical community in today's world, like
The World Health Organization.
yeah, the World Health Organization is actually like also practicing on feral psychic mutants that consume flesh. And that's like a danger that they face every day of their lives that is unreported.
He yeah, so Oscar's just, he's sitting there, and this has become something completely other than he was expecting to be able to deal with. This is like this is
not gonna leave this room. What the fuck is that? This is leaving this room.
oh no, this just completely, this changes a lot. Like a lot.
Now you see why I was being so secretive on Eurypylos.
Please, we will have to talk about this again, but Chan comes first now. Speak with Gogo. Oscar has checked out. He's got like, this is like Chan level bullshit.
Yeah.
Like the suit's feeling really tight right now, and he just remembered
you
that
do
his
the
leg
thing where
almost
like you
got
try to
cut
pull
off.
like the rubber portion away from your neck to let steam out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just lost Oscar. So Fisher's on his own for the time being.
And it probably reflects your reaction when you first found out, right? Dr. Fisher, like not every single person knows, right, on Eurypylos. Like there are people who are ignorant to that fact. But a good portion of the population is aware of this. You specifically study this, right? Like, so you are even more intimately aware than everybody else. And so when you found out like the depth of it, or your initial reaction, that fire that it sparked, right, in you to want to make this the goal of your life, right? Like,
yeah.
This was step one, right? The denial portion, right?
So to give you a window into what Chan aside for this particular aspect,
Yeah.
like Oscar has spent essentially every day of his adult life trying to through like the tried and true methods become better and become like a more adept psychic.
Harder, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah, it's like so part of him feels like he's kind of had the wool over his eyes this whole time, and the other side of that is like he's seen burnouts. He's seen what happens when people torch.
Absolutely.
And it usually takes, a force of 100 to 1 with the element of surprise to put them down. So, like, there's like the interplanetary disaster that's potentially brewing, but there's also this like his feelings about like what have I been wasting my time with? Like, what don't I know about this thing that he's made? You know, that he's spent his life pursuing. So he's done. He's out for now.
Yeah, finding out
yeah.
that like how small you actually are, right? Like in the universe kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, about how there's all these other aspects that you never even considered, right? Like just things that didn't even come into your memory. Yeah, so I assume after a moment, Dr. Fisher, you get up and leave Oscar to his thinking. During that time, however, while you guys were all having that conversation, Gogo, you're sitting, like, you know, lying, and maybe you're, like, dozing off a little bit, and you hear the door psst, open up, and you hear and you turn to look, and you see Pip kind of tapping his walking stick around, and kind of like doing the blind man kind of look around everywhere, even though you can't actually see anything. Do you say anything to him?
No, but Gogo gets the mama bear look in her eyes.
Yeah, the fire turns on.
Would touch him and I murder you.
Yeah. And he's like tap 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 tap, like tapping around. He finds like a chair, and you see him just kind of like sit down and like kind of wiggle into it, and he's there for a few moments,